Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ask Evelyn. It's Wednesdays, and we are here with episode 27 of Ask Evelyn, where we talk about compost, recycling, garbage, and other trashy topics. I am so glad that you guys could join us today. We have got a great show for you. And I am Becca Fong, and I work for Seattle Public Utilities, and I do the residential solid waste outreach. I am the person that sends those recycling guidelines to your house that you guys get that's got all those great panels that tell you where to put everything. And every week I am joined by my co-host, who's going to get logged on here in just 1 second. Sorry, I'm a couple minutes late, folks. I was trying to get some stuff set up here. To kind of kick off our show. So, Pat, welcome.
Hi. How's it going?
It's going good. So, everybody who joins us, it's usually Pat and I, but I'll let Pat take a minute and introduce himself.
Hey, everybody. My name is Pat Kaufman. I'm the Commercial Recycling and Composting Program Manager for Seattle Public Utilities. Help businesses recycle and compost all their stuff. So, happy to be here. Thanks.
All right. And Pat's always got the fantastic background. I send you guys your kind of flyers and sheets that usually folks will put up on their cupboards or their refrigerators, and Pat's got that great stuff that goes out to businesses too. Ooh, Pat, you got the new flyer.
I got the new flyer. The new Where Does It Go?
Look at that, baby. That's right. A good one.
Got the new reuse panel. Love it. Love it.
Absolutely. So those are going to be coming to you guys. You guys will be seeing those out and about pretty soon. We just did our first run of those. So we're really excited to really push the reuse option as well. So, and those of you who tune in every week are probably right on board already. So it's great to see that we're going mainstream with this, people. Way to be on board with us.
I like it.
All right. So it is October and it is a new theme. So last month we did recycle, right? This month we are talking all about compost.
That's right.
Weather's starting to change. Leaves are starting to fall. It seems like a really good time to kind of jump right into that natural cycle and flow of life. So we're going to be talking a lot about that. Before we get into our first question, I wanted to remind you guys, this show runs on you. It runs on you and your questions and your curiosity. So keep those questions coming to us. Send them to us in our various feeds, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You can always send stuff to us at askevelyn@seattle.gov. We love to hear from you guys that way too. So keep them coming, people. Even if it's not about compost this month, drop us a line anyway. We love to hear from you. So with that, Pat's going to kick us off with question one.
All right. And I want to mention I'm wearing my Washington Organics Recycling Council hat. Kicking off compost month here. So proud to be wearing this work hat, WORC.
Awesome.
Okay.
Nice way to rep.
Thank you. Question number one. This is a fruit fly question. This is kind of a compost question. What can I do about fruit flies? I keep my compost container closed, but they are still everywhere. Any tips for dealing with these pests? Thanks again, Anton. So good question. Common question this time of year. Late summer, early fall. You get those sort of lot of fruits, a lot of very ripe fruits and vegetables kind of around the house, on the windowsill. You got your tomatoes over here and this and that. So fruit flies, it's a natural part of like being a good composter. You're gonna take a turn managing your fruit flies. Very light, but yeah, and they are amazing. Their like aeronautic skills are off the charts. I mean, so anyway. We do have a few strategies for you. Becca and I have both been around the block. We've dealt with the fruit fly outbreak here and there now and then. Not that it's like, uncontrollable, but you gotta be patient and be diligent.
Yes.
So I'll start off, Becca.
Absolutely, please do.
A good set of things to have is a good brush. And your classic baking soda product, something like that, something very natural and basic, and just cleaning out the inside of your bin. My bin, which I have right here, is a kitchen counter bin, and it's full of goods right now. It gets a little dank inside, even though we use the bag to keep it clean. That's how we do it in our household. You still want to give the inside of that bin a little brush in with some baking soda and water, warm water wash, any kind of soap. It doesn't matter what kind of, any kind of detergent soap, whatever, or even just hot water. But the idea is there's some cracks and crevices. There are little bits and parts of that container. Not all these containers are perfect stainless steel vessels. So there's going to be little spots where a little, kind of muck can kind of build up. And just want to stay on top of that. That's one of the main things is like, don't give them a place for them to be populating from, basically.
Absolutely. Totally. So I'm going to take you guys all on a small nerdy turn. So Pat kind of got to it. So there's two things that fruit flies need. Their life cycle is about 10 to 12 days. And really what you want to do is you want to interrupt that life cycle. So you want to make sure they don't have a place to breed and they don't have anything to eat. And that's all about what cleaning is, right? So for your compost containers, Anton, Pat's got one with a lid. I think that's the best thing to do because you want to make sure that you're starving them out and you aren't going to give them any places to, lay their eggs is really what you're after. So cleaning. Containers with lids, absolutely. I mean, at my house, I will admit we've got a lot of like this going on at my house right now. And we just have a lot of produce that's come in from the garden that's sitting out. And we're starting to put some of that in the refrigerator. If you've got room, my fridge is pretty packed, but it's worth it to have the room in there to store stuff so the fruit flies don't have anything to eat on, which is really fantastic. And then making sure everything's clean, very, very clean. And I'm certainly not the world's best housekeeper, but I up my game this time of year for sure. So keeping it clean, making sure they don't have a place to breed, making sure they don't have any food. And then, Pat, once you have them, so you're learning to break this life cycle, right? You're like, okay, I got 10 to 12 days to kind of eliminate everything. And then you just want to get rid of those little buggers as fast as possible. Enter the fruit fly trap, right? So
what do you got? Let's see.
So I have a couple, and actually this started with, I had a glass of wine out the other night, and I walked away from it for about half an hour, and there were like a dozen fruit flies in it. I was like, okay, I better get on my game here. So we will have a link to a couple of examples of fruit fly traps in the show notes. So definitely go check those out. They will probably also be on our Pinterest page. But, this is kind of the classic. You got a jar, right? And you've got some kind of attractant. So here's a little red wine in the bottom. I put a little bit of dish soap in it to kind of, once they fly in, they get stuck. And this little cone, I can come up with all kind of theories of why the cone works or why it doesn't work. Essentially, they fly in and they should get out. It's kind of hard to see, but I think one just escaped.
But if you left the cone in place, you got your fruit fly hotel. They check in, but they don't check out.
Exactly. And I've got probably about, I'd say about 10. And so I put this up last night. So we do have quite a few at my house. The other one I tried was, kind of a similar idea with some netting here, again, with the soap so they don't get out. And I have to say this one is less effective. I think that the holes are big enough that they fly back out. The cone must the opening's just smaller. Right. So not as great. But I do have to say for my simple experiment, the best fruit fly trap apparently is just like, if you can handle it, just leave a little bit on the counter and then pour it out.
You just have a little for you, a little for them.
A little for me, a little for the fruit flies. Everybody ends the day on a good note.
That's right. Like gardening. You plan to give a little bit for the squirrel, the bird, the rabbit, whatever. You got to.
Exactly.
2 rows for me, 1 row for them.
Exactly. So those are some tips, Anton, you can try. But Pat, you also have kind of a unique way to do it.
Well, it's the EXT 1000, right? The exterminator. It's a vacuum. Once they're in your kitchen and they're flying about, they are incredibly hard to get. And so, just run your vacuum with the tube going and just go around. You'll see them. They stand out like a sore thumb. They're sitting on the face of the cupboard or over here by the wall or whatever, and you just get right up by them and they take off, but they get pulled in by the air. So it's a quick, process, I think. And so it's just an option if they've gotten to be too many of them and you don't want to wait for the wine process. But even if you don't think you have fruit flies, just set out a half a glass of wine overnight.
You'll find them.
Come in the morning, you say, "Oh, I did have a fruit fly."
You'll find them. Apple cider vinegar they use a lot. It just happened to be this is what we had.
Cranberry juice, whatever. It's like a lot of anything sweet and aromatic like that pulls them in.
They'll come right in for it. So Anton, thanks for the question, and I really appreciate kicking off Compost Week, and we have another kind of great compost question coming up here in a second. But with composting, we have a lot of folks who are really on board with it. We offer a really great service. The fact that there are three streams at your home where you can divert all of that organic waste into the compost is fantastic, but it can be a little gross, and that can be a bit of a deterrent for folks. So, I mean, that's why we wanted to talk about some of these issues and how to deal with them starting off compost week. And also truly, when we started implementing our organics program, a lot of folks were like, well, isn't that going to make it smell? And it's like, this is all waste you had before anyway. Separating it out doesn't make it any worse. It actually makes it better because now you can divert it and you can really kind of capture where that stuff is. So if you've got fruit flies or smells or whatever, you can deal with them that way. So
it's the, in the industry, in the solid waste industry, we call it a very technical term. It's called the yuck factor.
Right.
And it's just, people have to get used to managing their organic waste separately. Because like you said, it's always been there. It'll always be there. It's just part of running a kitchen. It's like having a kitchen. You're going to have organic waste. And so how can you better manage that? And I think, we're on the right path here.
We are. And, it's going to get colder and they will disappear. So I did want to add, in the show notes, we also have some other good resources for integrated pest management from the University of Kentucky in honor of one of our show producers who's from Kentucky. And then also for those of you super nerds out there who want to know more about fruit flies in general, they are a really fascinating creature that are really important to scientific discovery. So I added that too, just because that's pretty fun. Because
you're great at that, Becca. Way to bring it all in. Bring it all in.
Come on. They're pretty cool. They're kind of a fest, but everything has its place. So if you guys want to check that out, it's pretty cool. The University of Washington, my alma mater, does a lot of really cool research on fruit flies. So you guys can check that out. All right. So question 2, this one came in from Sandra. And Sandra said, hi, I have a really gross compost cart. How do I clean it out? And can I just order a new one? So this is a really great question, Sandra, that we actually do get from time to time. And it's usually at about this time of the year when you've had like lots of food waste. You haven't had quite as much yard waste maybe in your cart. And so there's kind of that slurry, for lack of a better term, at the bottom of your cart.
Very good, yes.
And so the best way to handle it, Sandra, is really to just tip your cart on the side. And I usually do mine on my lawn. And I kind of spray it out with the hose. If it's really gross, I'll get in there with a scrub brush and, just kind of let that stuff flush out. I try to do it more often instead of waiting for it to get super gross. But it'll dry out on your lawn or on your driveway. And I think the main thing to avoid is to make sure that it doesn't go into the storm drain. So, I mean, Pat,
the sun is a very cleansing, device as well. I think if you can do the hose out, like tip it on the side and use the jet setting on your hose nozzle and really get into those, because just like we're talking about the countertop bins, the little buckets we have in the kitchen, the carts have their little nooks and crannies. They have the lift bar section, and there's all these like edges and ledges inside the cart. So really get going in there with the hose and use a little water. It's okay once a year to use the water to hose out your cart, as you say, over the garden, over the lawn, or in a garden bed or something like that. Let all that organic juice go into your garden. It's good stuff. And then flip the lid open and let the sun just, on a sunny day, just leave it open before you begin to use it again. If you just close the lid after you wash it out, that's fine, but you're just kind of adding moisture to an existing kind of potentially smelly, situation. So let it cleanse, let it dry out, and, have some of those little spores die out in the process. And then you kind of start fresh. And if you need to, like you say, you can brush it out, you can go with the baking soda thing again. You can just go after. I mean, there's a lot of ways one could address that to kind of give yourself a fresh start.
Totally. And a tip that we like to tell people, and I do this at my own house, is I try to layer the food waste in with yard waste. And, I usually keep like a pile of leaves or some kind of debris. So I'll put kind of like yard waste on the bottom, and then I'll empty my compost container from the kitchen and then add some more. Using compostable liners or wrapping your inside container with some paper also really helps. Those of you who live in multifamily buildings, apartments, and condos, you guys will often find, because there's not a lot of yard waste there, but your cart should have a large compostable liner in the cart. And that will help kind of with the yuck factor. If your cart does not have one, it looks like Pat's got an example one. There are these green wheels. It's got compostable printed right on it. It fills the entire cart. You can, if you don't have one and your cart's getting pretty funky, you can contact your property manager and they can call to our call center and make sure that the account is getting a liner on it. So
yeah, we do that, it's got to be, you want to keep the cart clean. And as in a household situation where you just have a few members of the household using the cart, you're all kind of like on board with keeping it good or whatever. Apartment buildings with 30 units or more, you have this cart or this row of carts down in the parking garage or something. There's not as much ownership on the cart, so if it gets a little, so that's the strategy of the bag. That's why the utility goes to the expense of having the driver take the time to reline the bag after they dump it, so that the bag is to go in right after it's emptied. And most, just in traveling around town, most apartment buildings or condo buildings are running that way real good. Like the bag stays on the bin. Sometimes the bag will fall down in, and so if you live in an apartment, you have to pull the bag back up and get it on the edges and whatnot. But it's intended to keep it clean for everyone, so that nobody has to deal with this yucky situation, because not everybody's going to use these little green bags to get their food waste from their unit down to the cart. They might just dump loose food waste, which is okay. It's not like disallowed. But when that happens, there's more chance for a little buildup. And so the bags are intended to address that.
Totally. And then Sandra's other part of her question of, can you order a new cart?
Right.
I think we don't really do it. I think it's pretty quick to kind of stay on top of getting your cart really cleaned.
Right.
If there was a special circumstance, certainly reach out to us and we can figure out how to help you with your situation.
If your lid is broken, you have a broken wheel. That's really what the cart replacement program is for damaged carts. It's for infrastructure that has to be addressed. The cleanliness of it, we hope that each homeowner and site would manage the cleanliness challenges on their own. Ultimately, like I said, the cart replacement program, you can't get replacement carts all the time. So it's really there for if you have a bad wheel or a missing lid or something like that.
Sure. All right. So Sandra, thanks for the question. We do have 2 comments that came through, Pat. One was about raisin boxes, little raisin boxes, and if those could be composted. And so do you want to take that one?
Well, in my experience, depending on what brand it is and whatnot, they are not coated with plastic. They are just a small carton. So they are okay for composting. I've seen them on some, we've trimmed down our yes, column to some pretty basic items. But I've seen in the past, other compost panels that have a lot of product shown on them, and I've seen raisin boxes shown on other compost program charts. So I'm pretty confident that most of the, there's so many different brands. The Sunmade is the main one, I think, but that I think that they are not coated cardboard, and that's what you want to look for. You can tear cardboard, right? You can rip the cardboard, and you look for, in the little edge of that, you look for that little plastic kind of curly coating. And if you don't see that on a carton board like that, then it's likely not coated. You're good to go. Right. If you feel like it seems like a product that needs more shelf life, like the raisins come with plastic wrap around the carton. It's not like just the carton on the shelf. So the shelf life and the kind of freshness is provided with that plastic wrapper. If it's just a carton, then it might have that plastic liner to it, but they're accomplishing that seal, that airtight seal with the carton. So you just have to kind of, look for the presence of the other, preservation kind of techniques. And so, I think you're good on raisin cartons.
Yeah, I think it's a good tip to kind of tear it and see if you can see that plastic film, because it'll be pretty present. We had one other question too about composting. They called it a cake pan liner or wax paper. So I'm assuming you're thinking of parchment paper or wax paper. And we did talk about that in a very early episode, but always happy to answer it again. Yes, that is something that you can put in your compost carts. I know for a lot of the parchment papers, they will say they will have an approved compostable label on some of the brands that are on there. But if it's truly waxed paper, then yes, it can go into your compost.
And that's the scratch test. Look for the wax to build up under your fingernail. So if you get a cake from a grocery store or a store, something like that, and it has a parchment sheet underneath the cake, when in doubt, I would say no. Yeah. But if it looks like the kind of parchment you're buying and it looks similar to what you're using, then you're probably okay. The other cake thing that happens often is the cardboard tray. A lot of those are foil-faced cardboard with a little scallop edge. Those are a no-go. One could peel off the foil, I suppose, and the rest of the fiber would be okay. but that's sort of a moisture barrier that's on there. So those would not be okay, those cardboard sheets, unless it's just an uncoated cardboard. And some of them are like that too. Some will just be a circle of cardboard and not a, like a coffee cake or something sometimes. But
Totally.
anyway.
And then we had one more comment. It looks like we had somebody who had a question about City Light, and unfortunately we're Seattle Public Utilities,
Yeah.
so we do garbage, water, and sewer.
Right.
So if you have a question to follow up with City Light, go ahead and either go through the customer portal, myutilities.seattle.gov, or you can go ahead and give the customer call center a ring at 684-3000.
So yeah, I mean, that's true. And we are Seattle Public Utilities. We're the garbage and recycle compost. We're drainage and wastewater, and then the water department. So it is a totally utility to the city, but it's not City Light. Electricity is a different department.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, and your follow-up comment there too, please give us a call, 684-3000, and we'd be happy to help you with your other issue as well. So, all right. Thank you. Thank you guys for tuning in. And now we've come to the part of our show where we talk about our weekly waste challenge. And
That's
so
right.
Last week's challenge was, how do we get folks in our kind of new quarantine bubbles? I live with my in-laws now, so we have more folks in my household, to convince them to adopt our compost behaviors. So we have a couple of tips and tricks to talk about how you kind of, Pat and I we are often joking. It's like people might not be buying, but we're always selling ways for people to divert more waste and to use a little bit less.
That's our role.
All right. So what are the tips that you've got?
Well, so for my household, for my bubble, I have some pretty good composters already, pretty on board stuff. But I think that the ongoing reminder is really, make sure that it's not a plastic coated container. I still, as the, I can't help myself, but I look inside the bin to see how my households do. Every once in a while I have to lift out, and not quite okay here. I have a young teenage son who's a bit of a fast food consumer these days, so he's bringing home different containers. Yeah, and he tries. He looks for the, not all these companies are marking their containers as clearly as they could, and that's kind of the to-go container, like Ivers. We went out to Ivers the other day and the family got a dinner there, and we were looking at all the containers after we ate, like comparing, and they only have a couple things now. They pretty much changed everything to compostable, which is great.
That's awesome.
But they still have those little portion cups, with the peel off top. So anyway, long story short, just trying to fine tune that packaging side of things is the main thing. On the food side, we're pretty good about getting all the food out of the garbage and in the compost. So my bubble's pretty good with the green stream.
Totally. And for me, because we've combined households during the quarantine and the pandemic, what's been really hard is that people have different behaviors. And for me, I always used to keep my compost container on the counter, just because it's easy to scrape and stuff like that. But what I found was moving that underneath the sink. So I cleared some space underneath the sink, and it was just easier for everybody to kind of reach down and scrape their own plates. And actually my kids scrape their own plates now, which is fantastic, because they weren't tall enough to do it on the counter, and they would just leave it for me. So now everybody's on board with scraping their plates right into the container, which is great. That's fantastic. It made it a lot easier. I think, for some reason, kind of the yuck factor, nobody necessarily wants to open the container on the countertop and look in. I don't care. Yeah. But it made it easier to access when it was underneath the counter. It was kind of dark and you're not really looking at what's in there. So I've definitely found that more of the food is going in there versus going into the trash, which is, I have certainly caught a couple people like, can you make sure that gets into the compost container? So that has been really huge, and a very small change, which was to make it really accessible and super convenient for everybody. And similarly, having just we have a stack of paper that when the compost container gets emptied, whoever empties it just puts a piece of paper in there, whether it's my 4-year-old or an adult, which is really pretty great. So that's helped. And it's essentially if there's anything that's left on your plate, all of that gets scraped right in.
Right.
So
I know some friends of ours recently remodeled their kitchen, and they have step-on, one of those step-on containers. The lid opens up, and there's 2 compartments. They got the garbage and the compost there, and then the recycle is a different basket because it's rinse, empty, clean, and dry.
Right.
But for the yuck things, the plastic wrappers and then the food waste, they've got a 2-compartment step-on little container. So if you want to manage it like that, because that's you're over top of it. It's easy to plate scrape into that. Could be good for the kids as well. The whole step on thing's kind of like a fun thing.
Totally.
But yeah, so there's different techniques. Not going to encourage a bunch of consuming and go out and buying equipment to make it work, but whatever works for each household. You want to make it.
And I think for me, what I learned is, we always say it's like convenience is king, right? Like I found a way to make it more convenient, and that really upped our diversion. Like that just made it really easy for everybody. It was kind of right in line. Scrape your plate, rinse it, put it in the dishwasher. So
we say that on the commercial side, it's like whatever service level you're providing for garbage, you have to bring recycling and compost to the same offering. You can't make it another step or 10 more feet or a different thing.
Right.
It's got to be equal to garbage. I have this thing, I want to let go of it, and you have to have equal options. So yes.
Totally. That's what did it for me. So we'll kind of keep it up. So for next week, because we're going for our weekly waste challenge, we are going to talk about some, how to use what you've got to kind of prevent as much food waste as possible. We're definitely all keeping a closer eye on buying less things, making less kind of shopping trips. And so how do you kind of condense what you're using, what you're eating, and waste a little bit less during these times? So
managing your stuff, managing your organics, your food basically, but so that you're, all the strategies that we will talk about next week that could come down to, ultimately we want to reduce the amount of material that goes into all three bins, but we of course want you to divert the items that go into the green and blue bin, but less waste.
Totally. So we'll come up with some good tips and tricks for you guys next week. Great. So one quick thing, thanks for hanging in there. This show's running a little bit long this week, but we hope that you have found it as enjoyable as we have. We are kind of concluding our season of collection events. So a lot of you came out to West Seattle, and we had another collection event up in Wedgwood this last weekend.
Very popular.
Fantastic. Thank you guys for coming out.
Mm-hmm.
We managed to reschedule one of our events, the one that was going to be held in Rainier Valley that we had to postpone due to wildfire smoke. It has been rescheduled for October 24th. We will be accepting less material just because folks are, really looking for places, and a lot of our vendors are really busy. Mm-hmm. So at that event, we will be collecting electronics, light bulbs, batteries, and paper for shredding. But for everything, please go and check our website, which is seattle.gov/utility/beyond the cart. And I will keep the list of events updated there, as well as the list of accepted materials. And of course, check all of our social feeds, because that's the most up-to-date information for sure.
Oh yeah, our social feeds are awesome. We got good stuff. There, you got to be following SPU on, if you're a Twitter, a Facebooker, or Instagram, you got to follow SPU. There's all kinds of stuff being offered up, and information and tips and ideas. So
great stuff. I mean, being part of this larger utility, me subscribing, I learn about stuff from what Water and Drainage is doing all the time, which is fantastic. So, all right, with that, that's a show.
That's
Thank
it.
you so much. Oh, one very important announcement for those of you who hung out there, but we'll also put it in the notes. We are moving Ask Evelyn to 1:30 on Wednesdays. So, scheduling schedules need adjustment.
Instead of before lunch, we'll be after lunch.
We'll be after lunch. So 1:30 next week, that's when we'll start our new time, and we hope to see you all there. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. This has been such a great thing. This is, Pat and I have told you before, for me, it's definitely a highlight of my week. I love hearing from you guys.
Yeah, it's great. And we're, 27 episodes in now or something like that?
27 episodes in. Yeah. So thank you guys so much. And keep those questions and comments coming. We'd love to hear from you. And I'd love to see you guys when you sign on. And those of you who are watching, not on the live feed, but we love that you guys watch, and we love to hear from you and hear your feedback on those. So with that, we'll see you next week at 1:30. And I'm Becca Fong. And remember, life's simpler with less stuff.
And I'm Pat Kaufman. Remember to recycle right. Thanks.
All right. Have a great week, guys. We'll see you then. Bye.